Late start today. I woke up at 6:15, which is my last emergency alarm for every day. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, guys. Put a lobster on the thumbnail today because right as it was time to start making a thumbnail, I was listening to Peter Diamandis and some of these other guys talking about Claude which I think I'll end up having a Claude. Call it roughly sooner than later. I don't really know when. Not today. I don't really have a lot of time for kind of anything at the moment, but other than work. But the Claude will do a lot of work for you. I think it would be handy, and I have to admit, the more I'm learning about it, the more I'm realizing throughout my day, every day, that whatever it is I happen to be working on in the moment, quite frequently I sit back and go, is this something Claude could do for me? And it usually is. It usually is something that a Claude could do. So we'll see. I should probably get one soon, but man, you know, if I gave it the wrong instructions or if it misunderstood, it could also just go literally delete, like permanently delete every YouTube video or something like that. You know, it can do some very real damage. Coffee. Anybody new to these morning hike live streams, don't expect to be too entertained. I just go hiking and talk about shit. Trying to spend more time with my family in the evenings, which makes morning time a good time to do the live streams too. Opens up the evenings for me. And honestly, I think I'm more talkative and my brain's going a little faster in the morning. I think it's a little easier for me to just kind of riff on stuff and be creative. What we got? 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙 Don't even need a jacket anymore. Winter is ending. The only hope I have left for any cold weather between now and the hot weather is going to be just sort of the comforting fact that as a gardener, I happen to know that here in Tucson, if you consider, you know, when you're planting, you want to plan on putting your plants outside. What is going on up there? You want to plan on transplanting your seedlings to the outdoors after the last frost of the year. You don't want to transplant and have them get hit by a frost. And for me, over the years, I've learned in Tucson, a safe day for that is March 14th. And if you try to do anything before March 14th, and I've done it where I've planted a week early and then gotten that last freeze. So, you know, it's a little comforting to know there's still a little bit of cold weather ahead. But really, we're kind of done with winter. And that makes me sad. Edward said, good morning. Good morning, Edward. Poppy said, daddy. Probably not. I'm happily married, and Poppy sounds like a dude's name. I don't know, I guess there are girls who go by Poppy, but I'm married. Happily. Very happily, actually. I'm very lucky. I'm grateful to have a great wife. But even more so, this came up yesterday, actually, just sitting on the porch with Emily. I'm grateful that she's so grateful at times. Like, she'll sit down, we'll be sitting on the porch, together in the evening after a long day of doing all the stuff we do. And she'll just start talking, and she'll be like telling me how happy she is, or how safe she feels, or how loved she feels. And it blows my mind, because I never really feel like I'm doing the best job at just about anything that I do. And especially because I am doing a slightly better job at some things, I know that takes some amount of time and attention away from her if I'm putting it into other things. So for her to come to me and tell me just as she feels, loved and seen and appreciated, makes me feel good. Platinum Player said, my bed is full of dog crap. Now I'm sick. Well, that sucks. Joseph said, are you spiritually prepared? Have you trusted the blood atonement of Jesus Christ for eternal life? I'm on my own journey there, sir. That's my own stuff to worry about. I'm not where you'd like me to be. I'm not where anybody would like me to be. I'm not where I'd like me to be. Where I'm at is, I'm only at where I could be, if that makes any sense. I can't be anywhere that I'm not in that journey. And I don't have any particular goals of specifically where I'm trying to be. I think the mere act of trying, like putting in effort and saying, hey, I'd like to believe this, so let me go figure out how to believe this. That doesn't really make any sense either. So I believe what I believe, and I'm where I'm at based on all of the interactions and all of the information and all of the relationships and all of the experiences that have happened to me throughout the course of my entire life that led to me being exactly who I am today. So I'm on my own journey. It's not one that I'm gonna go publicly try to deeply explain, at least not right now. If I have insights that I think are valuable, I'll share them. Maybe during this hike, I don't know, probably not. But I'm just at where I'm at. More importantly, I don't have any goals about being somewhere else in my journey. I would like to be more confident in what I do and don't believe. But, it's fine. I'm at where I'm at, sir. Vicente, is it Vicente? No, Vincent. Vincent said, I have a question. Property managers in my area only want to spend around a $50 trip fee. Should I settle or stay firm with 80? Well, I'll tell you this. Everybody, you could be in a town of literally like 1,600 people population, which would change everything. But assuming you're not in an absurdly small town, and I do mean the smallest, where literally everybody knows everybody. Assuming that's not your position, I have people in every part of the United States charging $100 or more as a trip fee, with or without some work included in it. I have, and for that matter, I probably don't have people in every place in the United States charging $200, but I have a lot of guys in a lot of places where I have one guy, from the same city, Asheville, North Carolina, strangely enough. I have people who have told me that they're successfully doing over $100 trip fees and, charging about what I charge in Asheville, North Carolina. And I've literally had other guys, or at least one other guy, in Asheville, North Carolina telling me he's visited every property manager and they all have their own in-house maintenance crew and none of them are willing to pay more than such and such trip fee. So Yeah, I don't know. When you say none of your property managers will pay that, I guess the next question is that true? Have you actually spoken to every single property manager? And do you have good reason to believe? And by the way, you can do this business, you can do the exact same business model that I teach with realtors too. But, the first question is, have you actually asked all of them? And then number two, are you confident that they won't pay more than $50, or will they not? Did you present yourself to them? What appearance and first impression did you give them when you showed up at their office with cookies and your onboarding package? And if you didn't show up at their office with a complete onboarding package, with all of your documentation really well put together, articulate, with a working website, an email that is, your name at the domain of that website, all of those things. If you didn't do all of those things, then you don't know what property managers in your area are willing to pay. However, I will say this, you're in luck, because if you're right, if no property manager or realtor or otherwise in your area, if none of them are willing to pay more than $50, that can only be because you're in an economy that is so affordable that's a lot of money in your economy. So if $50 an hour or $50 trip fee, I don't know what you're looking at hourly, but if a $50 trip fee is the most anybody will pay, then that implies that you can also rent a house for $900 a month instead of $1,700 a month. So I would say you're probably in good shape either way. But the biggest question, I guess the bottom line I'm trying to get to is this: there's a client for every price. That's always been true for the history of man. What a king and a queen will pay more for a dress than a peasant will. And even just a peasant who really loves dresses will pay more than a peasant who doesn't really love dresses. It doesn't matter what your product is that you're selling or your service. There's always a client for every price. So it's not so much about property managers will or won't pay a certain amount of money. It's likely that you just haven't found the right ones and convinced them that you're the guy that they should give that money to. And also, this is not my typical advice, but I'll throw some extra advice in, which is just to say, my brain's still waking up. Yeah, your first clients don't have to be your best clients. And what I mean by that is, you can start off with, in my opinion, a crappier client. A client willing to pay you less is crappier than a client willing to pay you more. So you can start off with a less than ideal client at your $50. And then you can take your time to find the better ones. But don't fall into the trap, and this seems to be all handymen who haven't really sat down and thought things through and decided where they want to take all of this, and decided that they're willing to do whatever they need to do to get there. But don't fall into the trap of just wanting to make everybody happy, because your job isn't to make them happy. And a lot of people think it is, but your job as a handyman, for property managers, homeowners, doesn't really matter. Your job is actually not to make them happy. Your job is, and it's not to give them what they want, by the way, which is oftentimes how we try to make them happy, is we try to figure out what they want and give them what they want. They don't know what they want. They think they do. They have an idea in their head of what they think they want. The property manager thinks she wants a $50 trip fee from a guy that she can call up on Tuesday at 10 a.m. and say, hey, I need you to go over to this property right now and fix this sink. They think they want an affordable employee, and they don't know that that's not what they want, because they've never had something better. And then when you say, well, I'm sorry, but I'm busy right now on another job for another client. However, when I finish this job, I'd be happy to go over and fix that sink. Or even, you know, I'm tied up on a 2-day job. If I finish early today, I can go over there. If I don't, I'll still call your client, I'll call your tenant, and I'll set up an appointment for tomorrow evening. And they don't think they like that, even in the moment, especially if they were hoping you were going to be an employee for them. They think they don't like that. And then all of a sudden, let's say 6 months later, they just send every job they have to you. And they're happier than they've ever been with their handyman. Not because their handyman gave them exactly what they asked for or exactly what they wanted. In fact, the handyman made them unhappy and gave them the opposite of what they wanted for. He said, I'm independent. I don't work on your schedule, which they didn't think they wanted. And he said, I'm a little more expensive than you want to pay too. But what they find out is that when you can just send the job to your handyman and then wash your hands of it, completely forget about it, never think of that job again, until 6 days later when an invoice shows up in your inbox and the job is done and the tenant apparently is happy because they didn't call you unhappy. That's when they figure out what they really want. So your job is to put together the package of, you know, what you're selling them is a package. You're not selling them a fixed towel bar in the bathroom. What you're selling them is a problem that's disappeared from their plate and just gotten taken care of without really any effort from them. That's the package that you're selling. And it comes with the way you behave, the way you treat their tenants, the way when they talk to their tenants and they say, hey, how was that handyman? And the tenant said, oh yeah, no, I called you. I told you the sink was leaking. 45 minutes later, he called me. He couldn't come out the same day, but he was super polite about it. And he said he'll come out first thing tomorrow morning. He'll come early if I want to wake up early. And he'll get it fixed at 6 a.m. for me so that he can go work on his other job and we can have it done before I go to work. And then he showed up at 6 a.m. and he texted on the way and he said, hey, I'm stopping for coffee. You want me to bring you anything? You know, those little teeny tiny things that make tenants happy, making a tenant happy will make your property manager happy. That's one of those things you can do, you know, if you really want to drill down to the core. Your goal with your property manager isn't to make her happy directly. It's to give her what she needs, even if she doesn't know what she needs. And oftentimes what she needs is just a professional to take maintenance off her plate. And that's what you can give. And that's worth more than a $50 trip fee if nobody else is doing that. Grasshopper said, good morning, Bulletproof. I'm dealing with a tough, corroded bonnet nut on a sink handle today in my house. Oh, interesting. Do I have any good advice? I mean, there's all the standard stuff. There's chemicals you can spray on it that'll help it break free, and those quite frequently will get the job done. Depending on how far you're planning on going with replacements and what everything's made out of, you can apply some heat to the nut itself and expand it out just a little bit. Something else that a lot of people don't think about is ultrasonic vibrations. Now, I don't even know if they sell like ultrasonic, you know, crescent wrenches or any type of wrench. It would be neat if they did. It would be useful if they did. But, you know, if you have anything ultrasonic in your house that could just, you know, vibrate the shit out of it on a molecular level, that can help. Good luck to you. Kyle said, I'm struggling to tell customers no on some electrical jobs that I'm more confident doing. I'm struggling to tell customers no on some electrical jobs that I am more than confident doing, but not licensed to do. How do you say no, or how do you judge the situation and possibly do it anyway? First piece of advice, and I'd say this is true of half of all of the handymen who tell me what they're not allowed to do, is if you'll go look at, and I mean this by like people email me and tell me I can't do this in such and such state, and then I go look up the regulations in their state, and it doesn't take long, and you can just talk to ChatGPT half the time and find this out. But most states, when they say you can't do electrical or plumbing, they're not actually saying you can't do any electrical or any plumbing. What they're saying is you can't do any major electrical or plumbing if it requires a permit. And that's oftentimes the line in the sand that they draw. It's just whether or not it requires a permit. It's the easiest line to draw. So you're in, Colorado, and maybe Colorado has that law that says no electrical or plumbing. I'm not saying it does. I'm making states up. No electrical or plumbing. And then you go find out, oh, it's if it requires a permit. So then you just got to go to like the city of Denver and see what Denver requires for permits. And then you can go to, the town of Westminster and see if Westminster requires permits for that job. Whatever town you're in, oftentimes that will dictate it. But the answer to your question is actually really easy. If you can't legally do the job, then I just say, I'm sorry, I can't legally do this job. Because what you're risking, if you do a job you're not legal to do, what you're risking is having the ROC in that state come down with really huge fines that put you out of business. And then again, you're trying to make this one client happy. Your job isn't to make them happy. Your job is to provide a solid service, at a fair price, to do good work and charge a fair price for the work that you did. That's really your only job. It's not to make them happy. So, how much is your client's happiness worth? Is it worth a $10,000 fine and shutting your business down and being blacklisted from ever having an ROC license in your state? Almost certainly it's not. For sheep's sake said, what do you do with people who hear your handyman ask you to evaluate a job and then assume that... Okay, people who hear that you're a handyman and then they ask you to evaluate a job and then assume that you're just going to be cheap and are surprised when you give them actual real numbers. Well, a lot of this has to do with vetting your clients beforehand, and nobody can do that perfectly, right? But there are things that you can do, like asking them on the phone or over email, however you're communicating with them. You can ask them what their budget is. So if they want a bathroom remodel and they say their budget's $2,000, you just know going into it, they're not the customer for you. But the other thing you can do is, I want to say, regardless of what the job is, maybe it's not fully regardless. There are some jobs you really maybe just could not estimate over the phone. But regardless of what the job is, at least 99 times out of 100, you should be able to give them some kind of ballpark. If they say, I want a deck, and they say, this deck I don't know how big it is, but it's the whole width of the front of my house. Well, you get their address, you go look up the house on Zillow, you can see how wide the house is. You say, yeah, how far out from your house do you want your deck to go? 8 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet. You ought to be able to give them some kind of number. If they want a faucet replaced, you should just be able to say that's $150. If they want their kitchen sink replaced, you can say, well, I'll need you to send me some pictures, but most kitchen sink replacements I can do for about $350 labor. And if they gawk at that, they're not the customer for you. So a lot of times you could and should prevent this problem from occurring by communicating more effectively in advance of the job, so that you don't ever waste your hours. All the hours that you spent driving to their house, looking at their project, and then writing up your estimate, all of those hours are now trash. They're not billable anymore. And all of those hours could have been spent going door to door in a very wealthy neighborhood and maybe only getting one client for one simple toilet fix. But if you impress them with that one simple toilet fix, they call you back 2 weeks later and say, hey, you remember that bathroom you fixed that toilet in with the green tile in the shower? what would it cost us to get all of that green tile replaced? Now, I'll also tell you, if you don't know tile, don't be diving into stuff like that, man. That's a steep learning curve if you don't know anything yet. But the bigger point I'm making is every minute you waste on cheap clients where you could have vetted them at the very beginning before ever going to their house, and you could have just told them no before they ever had an opportunity to get a price from you. All the time you waste on that is time you could have spent finding better clients. Other than that, I mean, you asked what to do. I guess if you've done everything you've said, you've gone over there, you've looked at the job, you gave them a price, and now they're shocked at your price, there's nothing you need to do with them. They're not your client, for sure. Like, they're never going to be your client. They shouldn't be your client. So in some ways, it doesn't matter how you handle that situation, except it kind of does, because, you know, they're going to tell people about you, whether positively or negatively. So don't handle the situation by yelling and screaming at them and telling them you have kids to feed. Handle it professionally and just say, oh, I apologize. I typically serve a different client base that can afford these prices. These are just the prices that it takes for me to run a profitable business and give my family what they deserve. I mean, that's really all you have to say. But the biggest thing is to keep in mind, your goal now should be to invest as little time into them as possible. Every minute you give them is a minute you could have spent building your business. You'll see all these yellow flowers here. Really pretty. How about that? It's a very peaceful morning. Handyman Mark said a big part of this is being loyal to people that are not loyal to you. I agree. Grasshopper said, you're telling me I need a sonic screwdriver like Doctor Who. Is that what I should do? Should I invent a sonic screwdriver? I bet you that's trademarked. Not patented, probably. I doubt anybody has the patent for a sonic screwdriver. Or maybe I make a sonic vibrator that you can attach to anything. So it like clamps or uses a really high power magnet or something to just like snap onto any tool made of metal that a magnet can work on. And then you turn it on and whatever tool you're holding becomes a sonic tool. That'd be interesting. K Porch said, I'll be the first to purchase an ultrasonic screwdriver. 𝗬𝗢𝗨'𝗟𝗟 said, hello. Oof, time to get this beard trimmed up. Look at that. It's everywhere. Servant said, on the overhead rate calculator, how do you account for the taxes? I see the personal income tax spot. How best to estimate the number? Well, you're going to have to learn, number one, hold on, it was personal income tax. Okay, personal income tax is it's the taxes that you pay to the federal government. It doesn't include Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. Those are self-employment taxes. Your personal income tax, that's going to change for everybody. You know, if you own a house, you've got a whole bunch of great deductions that you can take for the interest that you pay on your house. If you buy an electric car, you get some kind of tax rebate for that. Your own personal taxes, you could pay yourself $100,000 a year, and you could end up paying $40,000 of that in personal income taxes. Or you could make $100,000 a year and get $1,000 back from the government that you never even paid in the first place, because you have kids and you have credits and you found all the deductions and you handled your money smart and you put a lot of your money in tax sheltered places. And so you could have the same business same paycheck to yourself. And just because you sort of run your financial life in a different way from somebody else, you end up paying significantly different amounts of money. So, that's for you to talk out with your accountant. I do recommend having an accountant. I see a lot of people trying to save a lot of money in DIY things, and trust me, as a handyman, I clearly can understand the urge to save money and DIY things. None of us got to where we got as a handyman, by having the attitude of just hiring professionals for everything in life and never doing anything ourselves. But when it comes to taxes, accounting, bookkeeping, and all of that, in my opinion, this is my own personal experience. I'm not claiming any facts here, but in my opinion, most accountants, it doesn't really matter what you pay them. They're going to put 2 to 5 times whatever. If you pay them $600, they're going to save you $1,200 minimum, or they're going to save you $3,000 with that $600 you paid them. Whatever money you're putting into your accountant, their whole sales pitch, they may not say this out loud in their ads, but the value proposition between an accountant and their client is, I'm expensive, but if you pay me, I put 2 to 5 times that amount of money in your pocket. So it's like having a machine just on the side of the road. If you go put $100 bill in it, it spits out $200. So to me, the math on an accountant is just clear, because again, it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter how much they cost in an overall sense. Yeah, don't pay them $1 million a year if you make $1 million a year, because then you paid them everything you have, So clearly there's nothing left for you. But regardless of what an accountant might charge for a 1-hour consultation, that consultation, you're almost guaranteed to learn the answers to all those questions. You can show up with those questions. Hey, what should I budget for personal income tax? And they're going to have a conversation with you, and I'll bet you the answer is going to be 0, or it's going to be 5%, because although it is smart to keep back, let's call it 30% for income taxes, that would be smart. But really, if you got a good accountant, you should pay almost nothing, unless you're just making an absurd amount of money. If you're making $178,000 a year, you're going to be paying something. It's just, there's not enough. There's this place you can get to as you move up the income ladder. There's a place you can get to on your way up where you suddenly have to start paying taxes. So if you make 14 grand a year, you're not paying any income taxes. You're actually getting free money from the government for the rest of your life. If you make 34 grand a year, it should be really hard for you to pay any income taxes. You have to try to do your taxes in such a way that you ended up paying in by the time it was all said and done. Now, if you're making 60, 70, 80, 90 a year, then you do need to know something to bring your tax liability down to 0. And you probably won't know how to know all of that, but your accountant will. And, the same holds true upwards over 100 grand a year somewhere. It depends on if you have a house, if you're itemizing, if you kept good records. If you took a little 3-day trip to a little town nearby with your wife, did you find a way to turn that into a business expense, or was it all just out of your pocket with no tax deductions? But that's the point of the accountant. So the answer to your question, how much should you intend on setting aside for income taxes? If you want the safe, smart answer, I'm going to tell you 30%. But I'm also going to tell you at the end of the year, when you do your taxes, if you use a good accountant, you should get that whole 30% back. You should end up not needing to pay that in unless you had just a really amazing year. And right now, one of the big advantages, one of the things you can do to limit your liability is the big beautiful bill that changed our tax structure part of what's in the big beautiful bill is this bonus depreciation is what it's called. And what it is let's say you go buy a shaper. I don't know if you know what a shaper is. Like a giant router table, you know, like where you mount the router underneath and run the wood through on top. But a shaper's way more powerful, holds way bigger blades, doesn't really matter. You go buy a tool, call it a planer. You buy a $2,000 planer for your business. Typically that $2,000 is not deductible as an expense for your business in full. Typically, what you have to do with something like that is you have to depreciate it over time. So you have to go, okay, I bought this $2,000 shaper. I'm assigning it a lifespan of 15 years, 30 years, whatever. And so every year between now and then, I can claim a deduction on my taxes for the loss in value of that planer getting 1 year older. And that's depreciation. Big Beautiful Bill has bonus depreciation up to 100%. So your accountant, now you're not gonna know that most likely, and you're not gonna know how to file for that 100% bonus depreciation, but your accountant will. And what that means is, you know, when you get to the end of the year, maybe you made 150 grand and you've got it down to where you found enough deductions that you now only need to pay income tax on, let's say, $14,000 worth of that 150 grand. What you have to do is, you know, your goal now is, can I find more deductions? Hypothetically, you're doing this before the end of the year when you still have the opportunity to make good financial decisions. And then you go, can I find more deductions that I can take advantage of? Like maybe you can get some kind of deduction if you buy an electric water, a fully electric water heater that's a certain percentage energy efficient for your house. And you look at your house and you go, man, I got an old water heater. I'm gonna have to replace it at some point anyways, probably soon. It really doesn't work well anymore. It costs me a bunch of money in electricity. I'm gonna go ahead and go buy this $800 water heater. And now I've brought that liability down from 14 grand that I'm paying taxes on down to 13,200. And you just keep punching your way down that list. But where the accountant comes in is they're the ones that know all the things that could be on that list. You know, did you depreciate your vehicle? Or does your business own your vehicle? Because if your business doesn't own your vehicle, then you can sell your vehicle to your business. There's just so many different ways to put all of this together that, you know, you should get an accountant to help you with that. So the answer to your question is I don't know, but if you want an easy answer, I'll give you the safe answer of 30%, but I think it should be closer to 0 in reality. Oh my God. Grasshopper gave a thumbs up. Mr. Joker said many times. Taylor Amy said, good morning, sir. Good morning. Apex, good morning to you. Taylor said hi again. Taylor said, what would be the one tool all women like? The one tool I'll tell you what Emily likes. I think she does actually like drills, just a good old, and you know, it's one of the most useful tools ever. So if you're looking for gift ideas, a drill is actually a great gift idea. And specifically for a woman, assuming we're not talking about a big, hulky, 300-pound, all-muscle tradeswoman. So when you say woman, you mean like most typical women. Get them like the Milwaukee M12 series. It's 12 volt instead of 20. So she's not going to be, driving a bunch of concrete anchors into a cement slab with it. But yeah, women like drills. Get her a nice drill. Get her a Milwaukee M12 or something like that. Pick it more based on how it looks and how much it weighs than anything else, because they're all going to do a good job these days. Even people argue with that. I've got people all over this channel using Ryobi 1 Plus, which is like Ryobi's supposedly professional line. And they've been using the same tools for like 7 years, running their business off of it, and they're fine. So don't worry about quality. All of the ones at a Home Depot or a Lowe's are going to be high enough in quality if we're not talking about for a trades professional. Also, staplers, like the T50 staplers, because you can do fabric with those. Emily put, she's got a little craft room in our house, and the ceiling's covered in moss. It's not real moss, of course. It's like these plastic mats that look like moss. Staple those to the ceiling. And I got her a stapler simply because she really likes staplers. She uses them quite a bit. A really good screwdriver set is just handy to have, and or just a hand tool set. So screwdriver, and hammer, and a few other hand tools. Especially something that I've spent money on a few times for Emily is hardware kits, where you can hang pictures and stuff. All the different types of picture hangers and easy to use drywall anchors and stuff. Those are also pretty nice to have. I can't think of more at the moment if we're really specifically talking about tools that women love, but I think women, when it comes to tools, all women want is functionality. They just want to have access to the basic things that they'll need to do the basic things that they're trying to do. So that would definitely, I think, include just a decent quality, lightweight, lower power drill. It's only lower power because it's lightweight. If you have smaller batteries, they weigh less, and the battery's most of the weight. So when I say lower power, it's not that a woman can't handle a higher power one, but she doesn't need that. I don't use tools. I don't have a giant 48 volt, monster 35 pound hammer drill. That's what I was trying to think of. I don't have one of those because I don't need one of those, because the tools I do have for hammer drilling into cement, they're fully sufficient. I don't need anything more, so I don't have anything more. I hope that makes sense. Just a good set of, decent quality, easy to use, easy to store. Put them in a little toolbox so they can all stay together. Where are we at? Apex said, anyone have luck selling home maintenance plans? Probably not. Maybe somebody will answer that. I get that question so frequently. The fact that you're thinking in that direction, it's great that you have good ideas. I hope you try it and let me know. I do have 𝗪𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗡, I believe, is in here. I know Edward did successfully sell some home maintenance plans. I think a decent number of them. There are companies that do it. I don't think you're gonna sell that. Where are we at? What was your name? Yeah, Apex. Actually, Apex, you might. If I recall correctly, I know you have a website. It's a good professional looking website. I may not remember correctly, I respond to multiple emails a day, so I could confuse some people. But you've already got the website going. I assume you're a well-groomed, articulate person, just based on our conversations. So yeah, if you've got uniforms for you and or your employees, if you're rocking it like that, I think you can sell maintenance plans. I don't think Chuck with a truck from down the road is going to sell any maintenance plans. But yeah, if you can give your clients the appearance of a larger, more established, long-running company that really knows what it's doing, then I think you can sell that. And I've thought about it often, the way that I would do it, me personally, if I was trying to sell, because there's 1,000 ways you could do it. I think what I would sell is just a subscription package where I'll send them a quarterly email suggesting that I come change their air filters and, check the batteries on their detectors and all that. I would send them those quarterly emails, but I would put them on a plan where essentially, if you join my maintenance plan, then you get X amount of credit that just builds up in your name with my company. But you get that credit at like 10% off. So you get $25 worth of credit, but it costs you, $22.50 to get that $25 in credit every month. And then it just builds. And then when they need you, you're on hand and available right then. I also want to point out, and Apex, I'm pretty sure you're going to be fine here, but you don't want to do that if you can't manage money well, because you're going to need to make sure that that money that they're paying you in advance is available for you to pay yourself with when the time comes, or that you've somehow invested it into your business to increase your profitability, so that even if you don't necessarily have their $25 the day that that time comes, you at least have a business that can support you going and doing that work without receiving a paycheck for that work that day, because you were paid for it over the last 12 months, 1 month at a time. Just manage the money well. But y'all let me know if you do that. Dotted TME said the full body of tax law is around 70,000 pages. Doing your own taxes is like performing brain surgery on your finances with a spork, whiskey, and a mirror. Exactly. That's exactly right. They specialize. Accountants are weird, and God bless them, because you need their weird brain to be able to soak up and process 10 billion little bits of data, each of which affects how much you end up paying in taxes. Travis Burleson, good to see you, sir. Bard Clay said, only thing obvious about taxes is that the rich need to pay more. I disagree, but that's all right. Well, it depends on which rich. Actually, no, I'm just going to disagree and leave it there, but not passionately. I'm not going to passionately disagree. I think there's other solutions to taxes than just constantly wanting the rich to pay more. But like I said, by the way, I made it to the road. But like I said, that's not something I believe passionately. Just a slight disagreement. Mutinous Moose said, have a pretty good day. You too. Travis said, for taxes, I set aside 15% of invoice total in a money market account. That should cover all tax liabilities and accounting fees. I fully agree with that. If you want to include your accountant fees, then yeah, just put 15% aside and assume your accountant will keep a lot of that 15%. Actually, maybe not so much of it. No? Dude, yeah. I mean, tons of really good business accountants, they're going to be costing you like as little as $600 a year. And this is if you're communicating with them throughout the year and you're not just going to them one time to just file all your taxes one time. $600 to $1,500 a year. You can pay more. You can pay $2,000. You can pay $3,000. You can pay them an extra $40 a month to itemize all of your expenses for you. All kinds of neat stuff. You can, if you pay them right and you make them sort of you're on their team and they're on your team kind of thing, they'll just be there for you. You'll just have their number and you'll just text them. Mine has a thing where if I go spend cash somewhere, like say I'm on vacation or whatever, but I go spend some cash at a place that can't even give me a receipt. Like there's a dude on the side of the road, selling a drill, and I buy a Milwaukee drill from him for $25. And that's it. I can just like get a paper and write out a receipt and have me and the guy sign it, and then snap a picture of it with my phone, text it to my accountant, and she'll take care of it. She'll, properly put it into whatever books she's keeping for me. I try to not worry about how she does all of it. I just flow with her system. But I can just text her anytime and ask her a question, send her a receipt, explain the situation, and ask, which way should I go with this? It's quite convenient, and it's well worth the money. I think accountants, despite people feeling like they're super expensive, it's like saying a Toyota Camry is super expensive. Well, it is, but I mean, if you want like a good solid car that's going to last 350,000 miles, it's not actually expensive compared to a car that costs $10,000 less and isn't going to make you to 150,000 miles. It's all a value proposition. And I think accountants are a good value proposition. Robbie Miller said, good morning. I've recently started a handyman business, fixing to apply for a 1099 handyman job, claiming to make 2,000 to 3,000 a week. Should I be wary of them offering that kind of money? Well, 2,000 to 3,000 a week is very, very, very doable. However, if you're 1099, yeah, I mean, I don't see a good reason to do that for someone else. And what I'll warn you of is, well, the answer to your question is yes, you should be wary of them, but it's not for offering that kind of money. That kind of money is not unusual money. But anybody who's looking to hire handymen on a 1099 basis where you have to apply to be hired, and they're telling you how much you're going to make per week, what that implies to me is that's somebody who should be hiring a W-2 employee, and instead they're trying to offload their liability onto you by hiring you as a 1099. And they're likely going to want to have some kind of control over your schedule or over what work you do and when you do that work and how you do that work. But they're going to want you to take all the liability. So you're going to be the one that has to have the insurance, and you're going to have to sign a contract stating that you're responsible essentially for everything. So it's a situation where they're guaranteed not to lose. The worst case scenario for them is they find a job, they subcontract it to you, you mess it up. They can't mess it up because they're not doing the job. You mess it up, and now you're responsible for it because they subcontracted it to you, and you've signed a contract saying that you're responsible for it. So if you succeed and you get the job done, they get paid. And if you don't succeed, you don't get paid and they don't get paid, but they didn't really have to do anything other than ask you to go do a job. It's like if I walked up to you and said, hey man, I'm gonna send you leads. Like, I'm just gonna, anytime I know somebody who wants some work done, I'm gonna send you that work. But when you do that work, I want you to pay me 30%. Doesn't make any sense, right? There's no reason for you to pay 30% for some leads. And that's essentially what they're giving you, is closed leads. Oh, that's pretty. Look at that. It's a very pretty flower. But yeah, typically when I see those situations, not every one of them, but typically those are not good situations. And if you want to get paid $3,000 a week as a handyman, just start a handyman business, you know, and just do that. It's actually not hard to do. I shouldn't say that. It's hard. My bad. It's hard. It's physically hard. When I have this thing that some people get confused with. I say that a lot of things are not hard to do. And what I mean by not hard is, I mean, if you're willing to put in the work, your odds of success are very high. So that's what I mean. Because hard, for me, like, it's hard to build a rocket that can go to the moon. It's not because the metal that you build the rocket out of is too heavy for me to pick up. It's not that. It's literally that I don't know how. My odds of success are almost zero. It would be very hard for me to succeed in that. The odds would be very low. So when I say something's not hard to do, all I mean is if you're willing to just take the steps, then success is almost guaranteed if you do nothing more than just wake up every morning intent on taking all the steps and not wasting any time. That's what I mean. And for me, starting off, you know, when I had, there was a period of time where, I don't know, for about 6 months, I did have some other clients, but really I had one main client, and I was averaging with that property manager, picking up my checks every week, because they were just cutting checks on Fridays for whatever you have invoiced for by Friday morning, or by Thursday night rather. About $3,000 a week was a pretty usual number. There was $6,000 weeks, and there was $2,000 weeks. But I mean, if it was like $3,500, that was just an absolutely normal average check for me during that period of time, with almost all of that being labor and not materials. Bard Clay said, yeah, that's insane. $3,000 a week. Yeah, it's absolutely normal. $3,000. Let's do some math real quick. All right. Let's do some math. I propose that y'all are, this is my general proposal on this channel if I have a system. What I propose is that you build a business that keeps you billable on the job. Not talking about drive time, not talking about Home Depot time, not talking about cleaning out your van at home at the end of the day. Billable hours worked on the job with tools in hand, 6 hours a day at $100 an hour. That's $600 a day times 5 days a week is $3 grand a week. That's actually all you have to succeed at to do $3 grand a week in labor, is you have to do $100 an hour, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now, if you do it the way I did, I didn't just end up there. You know, the first time I found myself at $3 grand a week, that was, I'm certain, was less than $100 an hour. I've never billed hourly. I'm just saying when you averaged it all out, I was probably on the job with tools in hand, 8 to 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I took 1 day off, maybe every 10 days at the most. But typically during that period of time in my journey in this business, I was taking 1 or 2 days off per month. And that's how I initially hit my $3 grand. And then I got better at what I do. I got better at scheduling. I got better at figuring out that I should be charging more. I got faster at my jobs. I developed an inventory system so that I didn't have to go to Home Depot for every job, which allowed me to squeeze more jobs in per day. But $3 grand a week is, again, when I say not hard, what I mean is it's extremely difficult physically. It takes a lot of work and dedication. But if it's your goal, the chances of achieving that goal, if you just wake up and work towards that goal, they're not 100%, but I mean, it's just very doable. It's just absolutely doable. And the people who are saying they're going to pay you $3 grand a week, they're paying themselves $3 grand a week. If they're paying you $3 grand a week, they're taking $3 grand a week too, or they're taking $2 grand or $1,500. But trust me, they have figured out how the system works, and they're pricing jobs very high, and they're actually only paying you half or maybe up to 66%. You know, just call it 2/3. Maybe you're keeping 2/3 of the labor that they're billing for your time, maybe. So keep that in mind. Robbie Miller said it's a property management company. Oof. No, now I really don't like it. If it's a property, and let's be clear on what you mean by a property management company. For me, a property management company is just a company who manages other people's properties. And those companies are responsible for getting all the maintenance done. But they shouldn't be trying to hire 1099 employees. Exactly. Like that's not really how that works. They do, like, I'm 1099 with my property managers, but no property manager, no legit property manager has ever reached out to me and tried to like recruit me or say that they're hiring and that they'll pay me $2,000 to $3,000 a week. That's generally not how it works. I would approach it with a lot of caution, because what you're probably dealing with is not an actual property management company. You're probably dealing with a middleman. And I've had the idea to be this kind of middleman before. It's just not something I want to do. It doesn't feel quite ethical. But, well, and I play that role in some ways now. Like, I have property managers and I have a subcontractor. And I do subcontract work out to him, and I keep a percentage. But I don't push all the liability off on him. I carry all the liability. And he's not an employee, but he doesn't carry the same risks that I carry because of how I've set things up. But imagine doing that. Imagine you have one property management company that your business services, and that one company, you know, you have one subcontractor who helps you out a lot. Well, now make it 50 property management companies that you service all over the country, and then you go and you find all these other people, all these other subcontractors, and you say, hey, all y'all property managers, send me all your work. And all y'all handymen, send me your 1099 and your insurance and sign this contract. And then you just set things up in a way so that when you assign all these jobs out, like I said, they're getting a percentage, you know, of every job that's successfully completed, but they're taking on zero liability for every job that is not successfully completed. And that's what it sounds like to me. It could be an actual property management company, and it could be that they're so desperate for a good handyman that they're literally having to advertise for one and offer people to come apply and promise them a lot of money. But make no mistake, it's usually not a good deal. It's a good deal when it's a normal property management company that isn't asking people to come apply. It's the promising you a certain amount of money that doesn't make any sense. How much money you make is completely up to you. You could make $6 grand a week if you want to work your business a certain way, and you could make $1 grand a week if you want to work your business a certain way. It's the fact that they seem to be trying to sell you on working for them, I guess, that I don't like. 281 Lion said, beautiful Arizona morning. Have you ever been to Safford, Arizona? 2 hours east of you at the base of a 10,000 foot plus mountain. Maybe a good spot for a handyman camp out. Are we talking about the Graham Mountains? Graham Mountain? I can't remember if it's just the one mountain called Graham or the range, but yeah, I've been around there. I don't know if I've been right where you're talking about. There is a state park over there, actually, that has a lake and looks really, really nice for the handyman campouts. I heavily considered that state park once. At that point in time, I was trying not to travel so far. But now I'm traveling, you know, I've gone to Georgia for this already. So at this point, I'll travel just about anywhere. Robbie Miller said, property excellence solutions in the Augusta, Georgia area. Cool. Bard Clay said, got people who can't even afford food and rent because they're unfortunate enough to not be smart enough to do anything but work retail. Fucking bullshit. All right. I don't buy that. Anthony Pilaris said, my company is the Next Level Handyman LLC. I have 2 property managers. One is net pay 30 and one pays 7 days, but it's not always consistent. What shall I do? I don't worry too much about how quickly they pay me, as long as they pay me regularly. So for me, even a net 30 that sometimes, like for example, when I do move outs, almost always, if I do a move out, I'm getting paid more than 30 days out from that, even though they're net 30. And I could throw a little fit and say, you need to pay me, you know, by the 30-day point. But as long as I see that they are, you know, there's clients who are trying to not pay you, and there are clients who are just absolutely running a completely normal system with the goal of paying you, who routinely do pay you. In the world of business to business, which is the world you're in, working for property managers, you're not serving homeowners, you're serving a business. In the world of business to business, it's just generally expected that everyone is running their business in such a way that we can just operate on this net 30 basis and just kind of, you know, not, I guess, let me give you the alternative, right? Instead of trying to describe the ideal, let's describe the alternative. The alternative to business, net 30, not worrying too much about getting paid a little bit later than usual. In that world, the alternative is you hire Randy, because Randy's wife knows your cousin, and Randy said he can knock this job out. You're a property manager, so, you know, you have to go through a system to ultimately pay Randy. But Randy says he can go replace that interior door for $200, and he does it. And you're like, thanks, man, send me an invoice. And Randy's like, no, you gotta pay me now. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you knew. That's not really how we work. Just send us an invoice, you know, and it gets sent up to finance, and finance will review it, and they'll put it in for payment, and then Martha, you know, does the payments on every other Tuesday or whatever their system is. And now Randy's losing his mind and threatening to go like beat down the door where there's a tenant living in that house, because Randy has it in his head that he's got to get that money, and he's got to get that money now. So if you're a property manager Your ideal handyman is a handyman who has worked hard enough, long enough, charged enough money to spend it, of not having access to that cash, but understanding that that cash is working for you, because by virtue of you allowing them to take more time to pay, you're charging a premium. You can call it interest. It's not really interest, it's just a premium. But you now get to charge that property manager more for the same job, for the convenience of you waiting to get paid. I hope that makes sense. I'm not saying anything is right, and I'm not saying anything is wrong. I'm saying this is the way this industry works. So, for me, both of my biggest clients, who each send over 100 grand a year worth of work, both of my biggest clients are net 30. One of them pretty much pays weekly. I've noticed lately he's been paying like sometimes 2 to 3 weeks apart instead of weekly. But that's kind of the point, is I don't know, because I don't even look at it. I have an operating capital account that everything comes out of. I get paid when I get paid. I sit down every now and then and I go consolidate the books and I double check that every single job has been paid. And then I end up, after, call it, maybe I go in and I do 70 jobs. I go mark 70 jobs as paid over the last however many weeks. And when I do that, I find that there are 2 that were 60 days ago that haven't been paid. I just shoot off an email and I just go, oh, hey man, I was just reconciling the books and I noticed I can't find any record of these 2 jobs paying out. Did those get paid out? Or do you need something more from me? Or what's the deal there? And I usually get an email back saying, yeah, this one got paid out here. Sorry, it looks like I put the wrong work order number, on the payout sheet. So that probably confused you. But if you look at this one for the email I sent on this day, that's where that one paid out. And the other one, I don't know what happened. Must have fell through the cracks, but I can send that through today, or I can add it to the next check I cut, which will be next Tuesday. And I'll say, no worries, just add it to next Tuesday. That's who property managers want to hire. They don't want to hire the person who needs to get paid faster, because instead of making their job easier by taking maintenance off their plate, you've actually now made their job harder by becoming a thorn in their side that they have to constantly, clean and squeeze the pus out of and keep from getting infected. When what they'd like to do is pull the thorn out and just replace that thorn, with a nice Band-Aid. The Band-Aid being the handyman who isn't too worried about when he gets paid, as long as he routinely gets paid and nobody's ever trying to purposefully take too long or drag their feet or purposefully not pay him. 𝗪𝗪𝗨'𝗟𝗟, the money of a society belongs to all the people. Any money one possesses is being used by them, but they do not own the money. The rich are hoarding our money, and 𝗪𝗪𝗨'𝗟𝗟's gonna take it from them. Well, I intend on being one of those rich people, and I think every penny that I make belongs to me. If we are ancient hunter-gatherers and you found a really pretty shiny red rock in a stream bed, and I found some apples in a different canyon, and you come to me and say, hey, I'll give you this pretty green rock or this pretty red rock for those apples, and I give you those apples, that pretty red rock is now mine. It's not yours anymore. You gave it to me, and I consider all money to be the same thing. You can have an argument that it's not, and I'm okay with you not agreeing with me, but I intend on being one of those people who does amass more stuff, more wealth, more value than others, because I don't look at money as money, I look at money as tools. So when I say I intend on amassing wealth, that's like saying I intend on building a giant shop and filling it with tools, because tools are what you solve problems with. Tools are how you build a house. Tools are how you build a fence to keep people out, people that could want to hurt you and your family. Tools are very valuable, and money is a tool, and it's money that's going to purchase my ranch. And by the way, I do believe when I purchase my ranch, I do believe that I I do own that ranch. It's mine. It doesn't belong to the United States of America. It belongs to me. Now, I will admit the laws aren't written that way. The laws actually don't allow me to fully own my land. If I have to pay property taxes to the state, then I don't actually own anything. But the idea of individual sovereignty and individual property rights, Google individual property rights and just do a deep dive for a few weeks on that. You may not agree with me when you're done, and that's okay. But if you want to know where I stand on the side of individual sovereignty, individual liberty, individual property rights. I stand on the individual. I believe the individual is the rights of the individual rather than the communal rights of the civilization, as it were. It's the rights of the individual that, for me, are paramount. And I'm not upset with you either. I like living in a world where everybody has their own opinion and can just sort of put their opinion out there, make good arguments for it, change a few people's minds, but we're just not on the same page. I think most poor people are poor because they made bad decisions and they didn't work hard. And I think most people with money have money. Some of them didn't necessarily work hard to get it, but you do have to make good decisions and you do have to have self-discipline to keep it. Unless you're just smart enough to give that over to somebody else completely, which still also requires discipline to have $10 million and to say, I'm just going to turn this over to my personal financial manager and let them tell me how much money I can spend every week so that I don't ever run out of my $10 million. Even that in and of itself requires some discipline. But yeah, for me, I'm all about the individual. And if I'm able to become a millionaire someday, I want to do that. And I will, when that time comes, if that time comes, I will absolutely believe that that money is my money, not the community's money. And everybody on my road, and I do mean everybody on my road, I don't live on a unique road. Everybody on my road has adults, physically capable adults that I've seen raking their yard or doing whatever, taking their walks, who, for whatever reason, they're home all day, every day. And yeah, some of them are probably working from home, but most of them aren't. Most of them are just not doing much of anything, and society is keeping them from being homeless, when I think people who just don't want to do anything, they should experience the consequences of not wanting to do anything. I don't want to force them to do anything, but the consequence of not doing anything is you don't have anything. You have to do something. Again, go back to hunter-gatherers. If you want to eat food, well, you have to go find food. If you just sit in the grass and you don't go put forth effort for food and water and shelter, or if you don't go put forth effort to bring value to somebody else, maybe by babysitting their kids, and in exchange for that, they bring you food for babysitting their kids. That's a, personal value exchange that you chose to make. But if you just sit in the grass and do nothing all day, every day, the consequence of that is you don't have any money. And if you don't have any money and you don't build your own house, then you don't have a house. Unless some nicer person who amassed some wealth goes out of their way to build a system of government that puts into place a safety net that puts you into a house. But me personally, especially since the day I started this business, also before, but especially since the day I started this business, September 20th, I believe, of 2019, more than 5 years ago, I have worked hard to provide value to other people nonstop, basically 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Not literally, but basically. I take more time off now than I did before because I earned that by working hard enough to build a better life, but nobody gave it to me. Also, by the way, in case anybody's wondering, it's not because I'm white and it's not because I'm a man either. It's because I spent every waking minute of every day, I sacrificed time that I wanted to spend with my kids, which was not a good decision. I sacrificed too much of that, by the way. I sacrificed time with my wife. I sacrificed my garden. I sacrificed a lot of friends. I sacrificed even just working on my own property so that I could feel happy about my own property. I sacrificed everything I had to sacrifice, mostly my time, for 5 years, so that I could have more money than other people. It all comes down to money. Money's the tool. You don't have to worship the money. You don't have to worship a tool, but you can't deny that you live one kind of life with it and a different kind of life without it. And the kind of life I want to give my family, well, that requires a ranch. I want the kind of life where I can send my kids out the door and they can just go run and do stuff and take a few risks safely without some drug dealers down the road, or without some meth addicts down the road, or without some random 19-year-old kid in his new pickup truck that he just got too big of a loan for, gunning it down my road in front of my house, ready to hit one of my kids because one of my kids runs out in the road because I saw a really cool big truck and they wanted to wave at him. All the things I want for my family require probably $1 million or more. I mean, give or take. There's property I could buy for $500,000 that would be, you know, still 45 acres with a nice little house, but it's not going to be 45 acres doesn't provide as big of a buffer as 450 acres, put it that way. So I just disagree with the premise that the money belongs to the society. I believe whatever value I trade my time for becomes my store of value. And if I'm storing it in an ounce of gold, it's mine. If I trade that ounce of gold for dollars, those dollars are mine. And if I trade those dollars for antibiotics, the antibiotics are mine. My store of value that I earned and traded for is purely mine. I own it as an individual. And to the extent that I don't own it, because the government can deplete its value by printing more money, and the government can kick me off my property for not paying taxes, to the extent that I don't own those things, I still believe that ethically I do. You know, legally I may not, but ethically I do. And I'm more concerned with the ethics. Grasshopper said, "See you later, Bulletproof. Got to run to Lowe's, see if I can find something to help fix this sink." Right on. Boré said, "I hear that Turkish guns are common in the USA. Is that true?" Turkish guns? The Turkish made some good guns, like some older guns. I don't know what I don't think Turkey's much of a gun manufacturer for export these days. I'm also not a gun expert, so I don't know. But I know Turkey, I've looked at antique firearms from Turkey that were pretty amazing. Bard Clay said, "My shotgun is Turkish." Yeah, y'all made some good stuff. Boré said, "What's the name of the gun?" Bard Clay said, "Star." Yildiz said, "Is Star translated?" I don't know. Let's see. Foley Does It said, "I'm a professional painter and drywall patching, also do handyman work. Painted a property manager's personal home. Now they want to hire me as their rental handyman, trying to decide if it's worth the transition." You're a professional painter. Well, it's not worth the transition. Do whatever work. Let them send you jobs and go do the jobs if you like doing them, and turn them down if you don't like them, you know. But if you're a professional painter, I don't know if you mean you have your own business. It sounds like you do. But if you're already doing very well doing that, you know, don't go take a W-2 job with a property manager. But yeah, if they want to start having you paint their homes, absolutely. And charge them a premium, because they're going to be net 30, most likely. Yeah, more work is always welcome. McGill, good morning. Melodrama Boy said, "Hey, buckwheat." Buckwheat on his morning walk on the farm. I wish. Peter said, "How much do you charge to paint?" I don't do full interior paint anymore. I have a guy that I just send those to. But the last time I figured up a price per square foot, including paint, I think, and my memory is failing me, but I'm fairly certain this included the paint. Last time I figured up a price for a job like that, I was at about $2.37 per square foot, of the home's square footage. Not square foot of wall space, the home's square footage. It was a larger home. It only had vaulted ceilings, and they weren't super vaulted, only in the living room and kitchen. So the rest of the home was just regular 8-foot ceilings. Nothing weird going on really at all. Pretty simple house to paint. And when I figured up my price, you know, I don't charge by the square foot. I figure up my price, and then just for shits and giggles, I'll divide that price into the square footage just to see what I'm charging per square foot, because that's how a lot of painters charge. And I was at, on that last bigger one, $2.37 per square foot. That was a while ago though. All right, Mount Graham, yeah, I figured that was Mount Graham. We go camping there semi-frequently. Roper Lake State Park, there you go, that is the name of the state park. It's beautiful. I'll probably do a camp out there someday. Ricky's Armed Kitchen said, I'm trying to start now. I got a formula for big jobs and small hour jobs. What's a way to get customers? I have 4 kids. I need to succeed for them. I'm never gonna remember all the ways in the moment on a live stream, but I will tell you this: if you go to bulletproofhandyman.com, there is a free masterclass, and for everybody who doesn't know, I have a no paywalls policy. And what that policy means, it doesn't mean I'm never want any money for anything, but it means I'm never gonna want your money in exchange for my information. So the masterclass is free. It's all free. Everything's free. At the bottom of the masterclass, if you go into the masterclass, it's called the Launch Accelerator. So go to bulletproofhandyman.com, click on the Launch Accelerator. I might just change the name back to Masterclass, because people literally go there and then email me and say, I can't find your masterclass. And I'm like, it's the Launch Accelerator at the very top. It even has a description underneath the words Launch Accelerator that says, this is the masterclass. But go into the masterclass, all the way down at the bottom of the masterclass, like the last or the second to the last video. Check out the last few videos. One of them is going to give you 50 different ways to get clients. So my favorite way is property managers, and that doesn't mean apartment complexes. I'm talking about property managers of single family residential homes. That's my favorite way. That's what I've built my business around. It's essentially a trip fee based business doing small jobs. So the goal is to, well, it's actually twofold these days. It's become almost 50-50 because I found out I like move outs so much. But the goal is to have a lot of tiny jobs that you're charging a trip fee for. So let's say a smoke detector. Your trip fee is $150. Smoke detector takes 5 or 10 minutes. So it's 5 or 10 minutes of work for $150. And the goal is to get as many of these per day as you want. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you're doing an hour and a half of work, but you're charging $200 or something. You know, there's lots of different ways to set it up. But I like working for property managers. They send a river of work. The river just never stops flowing. Things never stop breaking on rental houses. So the work never stops flowing. And you get good at scheduling, so you schedule them tighter and tighter. You do more per day. You get a good inventory, which means you're taking trips to Home Depot. So now you have more hours in the day to work, so you do a few more per day. And you build your job kits that are also systems for how you perform these jobs, and you get faster at the jobs, and you can do more of them per day. And you get to that point where you can charge a $150 trip fee and do 6 of those a day. And if you do the math, that's $900 a day. I don't propose that that's average or normal. You're not going to consistently have 6 jobs a day every single day. Some days will be 3 jobs, some days will be 5 jobs, some days will be 6 jobs, and some days will be 1 job, you know, but that's the method for this channel. I can't just break it all down on a live stream in 5 minutes, but that's what the masterclass is there for. It will literally guide you through. I cannot stress the extent to which I mean this. It will guide you step by step through the entire process of how to do this the right way. The way that makes you legit, that makes you legal, that makes you respected, that makes you respect yourself, and that puts real money in your bank and builds a very real future for you and your family. Foley said, thanks for the advice. They're wanting a reliable handyman, just afraid to commit. Wouldn't be a W-2. I mean, as long as they're treating you, you know, like an independent owner operator with some respect, as long as they're understanding that you are a real business and that they need to treat you respectfully like a real business, you know, and you can charge your fees, then it sounds like a fine thing to me, man. It just sounds like more work, you know. More work's always good if you want more work. Corn said, you're probably still crying about the 2020 election. Every day, man. I go to bed so sad about the 2020 election. Philip said, good morning, Ray. The weather looks nice there. We just got another 3 inches of snow and it's still coming down. Oh, I'm sorry. If it helps any, man, I don't want it to be nice here. I want it to be wintertime here. I didn't get a winter. We got maybe 4 or 5 individual mornings out of this entire winter. It was maybe 4 or 5 individual mornings had ice, you know, on the cars, frost on the ground. So I'm very sad. I love the cold weather. Like, I'm happiest, I think, somewhere between 30 and 40 degrees. Let's say 30 to 40 degrees with a light jacket. I mean super light jacket, unzipped, walking around outside doing stuff. That's like, oof. That is extreme comfort for me. That's my place to be. So I'm very sad that I missed a winter, but I'm also sad for you because I'm sure you're probably sick of the snow and you'd rather be down here with this nice weather. But it is like, it's just beautiful. Oh, by the way, I can't be certain, but it really felt like Replit, which is the AI company that I built bulletproofhandyman.com with, that I built all those digital tools with. I've been doing a lot of like building software on Replit, and I don't know how to code. Never have. Don't know even the first thing about it. AI has opened up building software to this handyman. And what's interesting is Replit reached out, wanted to know said they liked what I was doing over here with Bulletproof Handyman and wanted to know how they could help. And I had a meeting with them, but it felt like a really strange meeting. And in hindsight, looking back, all the way up to right now, here's what I think has happened, because this doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And it's okay. I made a choice to be honest about who I was and what I believed. I was aware that that choice would cost me money, and I made that choice. It's worth the money that I've lost. But I do think that Replit probably saw some quantity of content that caused them to realize that I'm a Republican / MAGA / whatever you want to call it, right? We all know there's a dichotomy in the world at the moment, a dichotomy of thought. There are people on either side. By the way, anybody on my site who is not on my side of that dichotomy, I love you anyways. I do not care what any of y'all believe. I want every man to succeed. I want every father, every husband, every man who's not yet a father or a husband, but who wants to be someday. I want to help all of y'all succeed, regardless of your political affiliation, and I will always be here for every single one of y'all. You can tell me that you hate everything I stand for, and I'm still going to help you try to succeed if you want me to. But I do think that Replit went and probably watched some live streams, because I'm wearing the hat that pisses everybody off. And I think they've probably chosen not to work with me because I just believe differently than they do. because I don't think the world is ending. Apex said, have a good one, sir. Gotta run. You too. Thank you. Miguel said, thanks for all you do to support your community of handymen. I've been so much more successful due to your transparency. Thank you for letting me know that, man. Really, really, really thank you for letting me know that. I have to admit, I feel extremely fulfilled, head to toe these days. Like, I'm blessed. I'm so blessed. I'm so fulfilled. I've really... Very few times in my life have I been anywhere near as happy and fulfilled as I am now. But that's not always been the case with this YouTube channel and my business and everything else combined. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate hearing things like that, because when I'm not so confident and when things are not going as well as they happen to be going right now, it's comments like that they go a long ways. So I'm glad it's been helpful for you. Morning.
Good morning. How you doing, bud?
Good. How you doing, sir?
Good, man.
About a block from home now, so we'll be getting out of here pretty soon. On the docket today, I finally have time to finish editing a video for 𝗬𝗪. 𝗬𝗪 is a company that bought OpenPhone. OpenPhone is a company that provides like an internet-based business phone on your phone. It's like an app. You put the app on essentially, and it rings through the app. You have your phone calls through the app. So instead of having a personal phone and a business phone, you just have an app on your personal phone that turns it into your business phone at the same time. And I did an interview with them a month ago, probably. And I did edit it once. I had to heavily censor it due to what seemed to me like too much personal information showing up during the demonstration. So I censored a lot of stuff, and now they want me to re-edit it and remove most of the censoring, because apparently most of what I censored out, I don't know, I mean, I assume it is real people's information, but they said they're comfortable not censoring that stuff. It's not like people's social security numbers or anything sensitive like that, just names and phone numbers and whatnot. So, got to edit that today. I got to finish man, we didn't even talk about the tool I just built. I'll make it accessible to y'all probably today, but I just built a tool where you can upload a video of your project, your handyman business project. You can upload a video of that and run it through my AI, and it's going to break down your project and tell you step by step how to fix it, what to actually do step by step to complete that project. It's going to tell you what tools you need, what materials you need, how much those tools and materials hypothetically should cost you, how many hours it should take. You give it your zip code, and it'll give you a range of pricing to charge something within that range. Oh, looks like my mother-in-law's at my house. That's cool. But I'm gonna work on that today too. If y'all are trying to use that tool, by the way, I apologize. It was working yesterday morning, and then I kept tinkering with it to do new, awesome, cool things, and I broke it and fixed it and broke it and fixed it. And I'm not actually sure right at this moment if it's broken or fixed. It will be, I would say, by the end of today. It's probably going to be fixed in a very permanent way. I think by the end of the day today, although there are a dozen other improvements I want to make, I want it to learn you over time, know what skills you do and don't have, know more about how you personally do your pricing and stuff to help you with all of that. But for now, I think at the end of the day today, it'll be basically working correctly. And then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with it. I got a lot of stuff to think about in that arena. All right, coming up on my house now. So I love you guys. Hope you're out there killing it. And I'll see you all on the next one.